You feel like something is wrong, but you can't explain it. You have food on the table, the internet is working, your schedule is full, and everything is in place. And yet, it feels like something is missing, as if your heart has been emptied, your soul silenced, and your life out of tune. The truth is that maybe the problem isn't yours. Maybe the world around you has lost something that no one else has noticed. A void that has no name, an absence that no one dares to speak of. It was Max Weber who gave this name, Disenchantment of the world. For him, we live in a time when reason has killed mystery. The world that was once full of symbols, magic, spirituality, and depth has become a jumble of numbers, laws, and formulas. Everything has become statistics, everything has gained explanation, but at the same time, everything has lost its charm. People used to look up at the sky and see gods. Today, they look up at the same sky and see data about humidity, atmospheric pressure, and weather. Love used to be a miracle. Today, it's a combination of hormones and brain impulses. Logic won. But at what cost? Progress has brought us comfort, yes. But it has also brought us a life so predictable, so controlled, so rational, that it has become unbearably empty, because human beings were not made just to understand, they were made to wonder. The disenchantment that Weber described is not just a sociological concept. It is what you feel when you sit on the couch, pick up your cell phone, and even with access to the entire world, you feel like you are alone. It is what you feel when you can no longer be moved by a sunset or get goosebumps listening to a song. It is the weight of living in a soulless world, where everything needs to be explained, measured, proven. A world where there is no longer room for the inexplicable. But the great irony is this: the more we explain the world, the less we feel it. You were trained to be productive, logical, efficient, but you were never taught to be enchanted, to slow down, to listen to the silence, to live the invisible. And without that, something inside you will fade away, until you become accustomed to living without a soul. But this is not the end. It is just the first warning, because understanding disenchantment is the first step to re-enchanting your life. In the past, everything was alive. Trees were sacred. Water had a spirit. Thunder was the voice of a god. And the night, oh, the night was full of mysteries that needed no explanation. All you had to do was feel it. Humanity lived in an enchanted world. Not in the fairy tale sense, but in the profound sense that everything had a soul. Everything carried a symbol, a hidden message, an invitation to the unknown. The sacred was everywhere, in nature, in words, in rituals, in silence. But little by little, this world was being murdered by reason, and the crime had no witnesses. With the Enlightenment and the advancement of science, human beings began to believe that they could dominate the world with their minds. Every mystery began to be seen as a problem to be solved. Religion became superstition. Intuition became nonsense, and the invisible became irrelevant. Everything now had to have a reason, a how, a wherefore. If it was not measurable, it was not reliable. If it was not rational, it was not valid. Max Weber called this disenchantment, the process by which the world ceases to be a mystery and becomes a machine, a cold, predictable, functional system, and without a soul. Have you ever wondered why most people feel suffocated today, even when surrounded by technology, comfort, and information? It's because we are living on a planet without magic, a world that has exchanged symbols for logic, silence for noise, being for doing. Before, a storm could be a divine warning. Today, it is just an atmospheric phenomenon. Before, death was a passage. Today, it is just the end of a biological process. Before, the soul was the center of life. Today, it is an outdated concept that does not enter the reports. And so, we were dying inside, little by little, in silence. It's as if humanity has torn off its own sensitive skin and replaced it with armor made of reason, strong on the outside, fragile on the inside. The problem? It's that without mystery, life no longer makes sense. Because human beings were not created just to understand the world. They were created to feel part of it. And when everything becomes a thing, a piece of data, an algorithm, you stop being part of creation and become just a user of the system. You miss something you can't even name. But that's it. You miss a world where things had souls. Where you could look up at the sky and cry without knowing why. And that would be enough. But now everything needs an explanation, even your tears. You wake up, brush your teeth, check your phone, rush to work, complete your schedule, come home, watch videos, and sleep. Repeat. At the end of the month, your salary. At the end of the year, your vacation. At the end of your life, what? Max Weber warned about this more than a century ago. He called this automated routine an iron cage. A silent prison where rationality dominates so much that you don't realize you're trapped. Everything works, everything is efficient. But no one asks whether it still makes sense to live like this. The cage has no bars. It has tickets, goals, checklists, and notifications. And surprisingly, it was built with the promise of freedom. You were convinced that streamlining your life was the best way forward, making everything optimized, measurable, calculable. From the time you spend to the number of steps you take per day, from your performance at work to the number of calories on your plate, everything has become a number. Everything needs to be proven. And the price of that? You stopped feeling. You stopped listening to your intuition because it doesn't have a graph. You stopped connecting with the sacred because it doesn't fit in a laboratory. You stopped following your soul because it doesn't generate profit. Max Weber knew that this kind of rationalization would transform society. And the most tragic thing is that it didn't force us into it. It seduced us. It convinced us that it was progress, that it was evolution, that it was the right path. But what was supposed to free us imprisoned us. Today, the entire world may be at your fingertips, but your soul is locked away. Technology can connect you with anyone, but you feel more alone than ever. You have access to infinite knowledge, but you no longer feel purposeful. This is the iron cage. You have everything except sense. And the cruelest thing is that inside it, you are still charged with being happy, with posting smiles, with saying that you are fine. But inside, everything is gray. Everything is repeated. Everything is empty, because the mystery has been removed, the sacred has been silenced, and the soul has been reduced to a medieval concept. And now, what is left? A human being who acts like a machine, who thinks like an algorithm, who feels like someone who apologizes for having a heart. But what if true evolution is not about becoming more rational, but rather more human? Maybe it's time to look at this invisible cage and ask, how do I get out of here? Before, man looked at the stars and saw destiny. Now, he sees gas, distance, and mass. The sky has lost its voice. Life has lost its poetry. And you have lost something you didn't even know you needed, the right to live without understanding everything. Because mystery was not just a curiosity of the past, it was food for the soul. Weber warned, by killing the mystery, we also kill the enchantment of existence. And the result was a world where everything has an answer, but no one has peace. Where everything is explained, but nothing is experienced with depth. Where everything is urgent, but nothing is essential. You were thrown into a machine that rewards those who run, even without knowing where they are going. That celebrates productivity, even when it destroys you. That calls failure those who stop to feel. And this is where disenchantment becomes a silent pain, because the soul doesn't scream. It slowly disappears. First, you stop crying over nonsense. Then, you no longer get emotional over music. Then, you start to find it ridiculous to believe in anything other than logic. And finally, you become someone who just functions. Reason created a world where everything needs to make sense, but it forgot to warn us. Meaning lies precisely in that which cannot be explained. That's why a kiss without love is not fulfilling. That work without purpose becomes torture. That success without soul becomes a burden. You can have anything you want, but if you don't have enchantment, everything turns to dust. And Weber was right. Disenchantment is treacherous. It doesn't arrive with a bang. It settles into everyday life, into decisions that are too rational, into life that is too calculated. It enters when you stop being surprised, when you think you already know everything, when you no longer believe in something that is beyond your comprehension. But there's good news. The mystery never went away. You were just taught to ignore it. It is still there, in the feeling that there is more beyond what your eyes see, in the silence that sends shivers down your spine, in the hug that heals without reason, in the love that arrives without logic, in the shivers that come from nowhere, in the tears without explanation. These moments are messages from the soul saying, "Hey, I'm still here." You still feel, and maybe if you stop running, you can hear. Have you noticed that today, everything we feel needs to be justified? If you are sad, someone asks, "But why?" If you are anxious, someone suggests, "It must be some chemical imbalance." If you are inspired, someone responds, "That doesn't pay the bills." It's as if the world had decreed, only that which can be measured is valuable, and the rest, the inexplicable, the profound, the subtle, it was banished. Human beings, the same ones who built cathedrals, wrote poems, and saw miracles, today are forced to prove with A plus B what they feel in their hearts. And if they fail to do so, they are labeled as weak, crazy, or outdated. Weber saw this coming. He knew that too much rationalization would not only kill the mystery, it would also kill the possibility of feeling without apology. We live in an era where logic has become a new form of oppression. Not with weapons or shouts, but with subtle demands. Explain, justify, prove. But the soul was not born to taste, it was born to feel. And that's why so many people, even when surrounded by comfort, live with an invisible hole in their chest. It's not a lack of money, it's not a lack of opportunities, it's a hunger for meaning. Because when everything becomes an explanation, you no longer have a place to rest. You need to understand everything, foresee everything, control everything. There is no more surrender, no faith, no surrender, only planning. And that's exhausting. You start living on autopilot. You move away from everything that can't be used, sold, or enjoyed. And without realizing it, you distance yourself from what made you human. The soul disappears, but the body continues to function. Logic won, but you lost. Because now, even your pain needs to be validated by tests. Even your love needs to meet criteria. Even your search for God needs to pass the test of, is this rational? And Weber would say, this is the symptom of disenchantment at an advanced stage. You have stopped listening to the soul because it speaks softly, and the world screams. You stopped following the mystery because it is uncertain, and the world demands certainty. You stopped trusting the invisible because it offers no guarantees, and the world demands results. But what if? It's precisely the invisible that can heal you. What if the soul is waiting for you to stop tasting and just feel? There are people who wake up and feel tired and uncontrollable, even after they go to sleep. There are people who feel like crying out of nowhere, for no reason, as if something deep inside them was screaming. There are people who look at their lives and ask themselves, was that all there was? And maybe it's not illness, maybe it's longing for enchantment. Max Weber never romanticized ignorance. He valued science, progress, and reason. But he warned, when rationality becomes an obsession, it begins to kill what is most precious, the collective soul. This emptiness that surrounds you didn't start now. It was built little by little. It started when you stopped believing in miracles and started demanding guarantees, when he exchanged prayers for reports, when the sacred became superstition. And when you were teaching your soul not to show up, because there was no more room for it. Modernity has taught you to be strong, productive, and independent, but it has never taught you to be whole. Because being whole requires recognizing that there is something in you that cannot be explained, something that needs beauty, silence, symbols, faith, and without that comes emptiness. But Weber did not just leave a diagnosis. Indirectly, he left a clue. He said, disenchantment is the result of the modern vision of the world, but the world can be re-enchanted if you change your perspective. It starts with small things. Stop looking for meaning in everything, and allow yourself to live the mystery. Silence the external noise to hear what is screaming inside. Let logic rest and listen to what your intuition whispers, accepting that some pains are not meant to be solved, but to be transformed, because not everything that hurts is broken. Sometimes it's being reborn. You can choose to live as a machine, or remember that you are a soul. You can live to produce or to feel. You can keep pretending everything is fine, or hear that emptiness as an invitation. Yes, it is an invitation. To get out of the cage, to return to what is sacred, to reconnect with what you always knew, but forgot. And perhaps the first step is simple, accepting that not everything needs to be rational, and that the inexplicable is also true. Maybe you're tired not from overwork, but from lack of meaning. Maybe what's draining you isn't the routine. It's the fact that everything in your routine has lost its soul. You eat, but you don't celebrate. You live, but you don't vibrate. You survive, but you no longer feel like you're really here. This is what Max Weber was talking about when he described the disenchantment of the world, a world where reason occupied all spaces, where the sacred was expelled as if it were a superstition, where everything that could not be explained, proven, or transformed into a result was discarded. But there is one secret that Weber only hinted at, and which now needs to be said out loud. The mystery never ceased to exist. It has simply been hidden by a culture that fears what it cannot control. The mystery is still there, silent, in everything that moves you without explanation. It's in the music that makes you cry for no reason. It's in the eyes of someone you love and you can't explain why. It's in the prayer you whisper before you go to sleep, even if you don't know what you believe anymore. It is in nature, which blooms without haste. In art, which touches where logic cannot reach. In the child who dances without fear of ridicule. In the lady who lights a candle and doesn't need to justify her faith. You don't need to understand the mystery to heal. You just need to allow yourself to feel again. It's time to get out of the iron cage they made you wear. She has no lock. She is afraid. Fear of appearing fragile, of appearing irrational, of being different. But the truth, being sensitive isn't weakness, it's resilience. Because in this world that kills the soul in the name of efficiency, whoever still feels is revolutionary. You were trained to be logical, productive, strong, but no one taught you to be profound. And now, this is what your soul demands: depth, silence, mystery. It is not by going back to the past that you heal. It is recovering the gaze that was lost, the look that sees beauty between the lines, who realizes that the flower is not just a botanical fact. It is a silent poem of creation, who feels that there is more to life than what reason can grasp. True re-enchantment begins when you stop chasing meaning and allow yourself to be felt by it. You don't need to become religious, nor abandon reasoning. You just need to make room for what is bigger than you, for what you don't control, for what you will never understand, but will always feel. And maybe the moment you accept that, the emptiness will begin to lessen. Because the soul only starts breathing again when you stop suffocating it with explanations. If this video made you think, if it spoke to something that was silent inside you, leave your like. That's how this message reaches those who also need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't just speak to the mind, we speak to the soul. Because while the world insists on disconnecting you from the mystery, here, we reconnect you.